In a kingdom, when the king or queen dies, it is usually the case that their oldest child inherits the throne. But once, in a certain kingdom, there was a very curious custom. When the queen or king died, their successor was chosen from among all the residents of the kingdom. It was said that the choice was made by the will of heaven. In this kingdom, there was kept in a very large and luxurious cage a rare bird. The bird was known as the bird of happiness. Whenever a king or queen died, the bird of happiness was released from its cage. When the bird rested on someone's head, it was as though the bird of happiness was placing a crown there. That person would be the new queen or king. Always the bird had landed on the head of someone who was known to be wise and who had then served the kingdom well. This time, when the king died, the bird of happiness was released from its cage, and after flying about, it landed on the head of a man who was a servant to one of the wealthiest men in the kingdom. Never before had the bird landed on the head of a servant, and there was concern among the people. Could this man be a good and wise king? The wealthy man for whom this servant worked had many children. It seemed there was almost always a birthday or a wedding taking place in the grand home where he and his family lived. One of this servant's duties had been to play his drum and dance and sing whenever one of these events occurred. The servant always wore a feathered cap on his head and a pair of pants that ballooned around his legs and a large belt around his waist. He always looked the part of a jolly fellow, a kind of a jester, whenever he entertained. Now, that servant was king. But before he moved into the royal palace, he ordered that a small building be built very near the palace. When it was completed, the servant who was now the king put inside the small building his feathered cap, his balloon pants, and his large belt. And each day he would enter the little building and close the door behind him and remain there alone for just a few minutes. Those who attended the king did not understand any of this, and they were concerned. One of them screwed up his courage and asked the king, "Why have you built this building, Your Majesty, and why do you visit these relics of your past life each day?" The new king replied, "Before I was king, I was a servant. Each day I remind myself of this. Only by doing so can I keep myself from imagining that I am greater than I truly am, simply because I'm now the king. I do not want to see myself as better than you or any other person. I do not want to be proud in my heart, for it has been said, pride goes before destruction." And so it was, all the days this servant reigned as king, he did not become proud. And when at last he died, there was great consternation in the kingdom, for everyone knew that he had been the greatest of all their kings. Now they could only hope the bird of happiness would again choose wisely. Like this great king, may you and I not be proud in our hearts. Indeed, often pride does go before destruction.